Hi, it's Gene, retired in Mexico, and we ask one question on this channel, which is, do they write them and sing them like they used to? Now, a lot of people, young and old, they think the old music is better, but I'm not so sure, and I'm a defender of the 21st century. So if you like what we're doing on this channel of senior reacting to brand new music, hit that like or subscribe button. And today we're going to return to the listography or discography series. We've done the years 2000, 2001, and 2002. And these videos take a long time, as you can imagine. I have to listen to a lot of albums. This is the year 2003, as you've seen from the thumbnail. And today we'll count down 30 through 16. So this will be part one of a two-part episode. And I might drink a little coffee here. I got this brand new mug. I wanted to show it to you. Don't talk to me till I've had my cigar. That's perfect for me, isn't it? So if you've seen my other videos, and here's the other side of that. So it's perfect for me. And of course my cat has decided that this is a perfect time to start mewing. So let me pause this video. Or actually, let me just shut the door. Lately, he has taken to mewing exactly when I start a video. I don't know what to tell you, but anyway, I'll go ahead and bring up this spreadsheet here. And let me just bring that up real quick. And I wanted to start with 5 honorable mentions, just albums I like that did not make the cut. And these, I guess these are in order, 35 through 31. I could change it at any time, but coming in at number 35, I have Belle and Sebastian, Dear Catastrophe Waitress. They're from Glasgow, Scotland, and you guys probably know them. I enjoy their music. It just wasn't quite there. Number 34 from England, a lesser-known artist named Ed Harcourt, but I like his music quite a bit. His album From Every Sphere. And 33, the New Pornographers, Electric Version. I like this album a lot. It's very poppy and it's fun. I have a slight preference for Neko Case's solo material. A real good album, Electric Version. Got great reviews, so you would think it would have made my list, but just fell outside. Number 32, and this one kind of hurts because I'm a big fan of his. I've seen him twice in concert, but it's the last and final album by Warren Zevon called The Wind. And he died 2 weeks after this album was released, and I like it quite a bit, but it just is, I don't think it's his best, one of his, say, 3 or 4 best albums, so it just missed the cut. And then at number 31, another one that was kind of hard for me to cut, but I really like this 90s band called Morcheeba, kind of a trip-hop thing, and they put out a 2 CD collection of their singles called Parts of the Process. And I like that quite a bit. So let's get into the 30 through 16. And number 30 is an album that some of you guys might say, you put this album ahead of those 5? Really? Well, yeah, I did. And I can't completely defend it because the singing is kind of rough. But this is the last and final album released posthumously by June Carter Cash. And it's called Wildwood Flower, and it's just a family sing-along in the living room. Really well produced. Like I say, her voice is at the end of her career, and it's pretty rough. But about half this album, well, almost half the album is old Carter family standards, and including the song Wildwood Flower, which has been recorded 1 billion times by different people. And I don't know, I played it again today, and it's just a really enjoyable album for me to listen to. Yeah, like I say, the singing is rough. The whole Carter family's on here. Johnny Cash is on here, and John Carter Cash, and yeah, and just I don't know if it was recorded in the living room or where, but it's just a sort of a front porch kind of album, and I love it. Coming in at number 29, well, we got another Cash. I just happen to have these 30 and 29. Rosanne Cash and her album Rules of Travel. Now, she's considered country. She's not really country. She's more of an Americana artist, and I think she's a very good lyricist. I always enjoy her storytelling and her songs, and her husband produced the album and did a really good job. His name is John Leventhal, and the arrangements on here are very good. There are some guest artists, but I don't think they really improved the album. Steve Earle's on there. I'm a big Steve Earle fan, but frankly, I think the song would be just as good without him. And it's, I don't know, it's just a good set of mostly originals by her. There's a couple covers, but mostly her original songs, and I think she's a really strong songwriter, and there's about 3 or 4 of her albums that I really like. Coming at number 28, someone from Quebec who is better known as a producer, but that's Daniel Lanois and his album Shine. This is probably my favorite Daniel Lanois album, and it's got that beautiful production and mood to it that you're used to hearing with, you know, everybody he's produced, from Bob Dylan to U2 to Emmylou Harris. And yeah, the title track Shine, really beautiful. And then he does some kind of Cajun stuff on here and just mixes it up, but really good, really good. I guess he's of Native American descent, or not, I'm sorry, Native Canadian descent. That's what I meant to say. And so he's got a little bit of that influence on here, and just a great collection of songs and instrumentation, and it's just a mood album. I really like it quite a bit. Coming in number 27, a really fun album that maybe should be higher, but I have The Darkness, Permission to Land. What a fun album. This is riff central, isn't it? There was 5 singles off this album, and I think it's great. You know, the best known song is was a thing called Love, but you've got Get Your Hands Off My Woman, and and there's such humor and crunching riffs on here, and then just that wildly eccentric vocal style. Gotta love The Darkness. Gotta love The Darkness. And like I say, possibly most people I think would have it a little higher, but hey, it made my top 30. I really like this album, and I haven't given their other albums really a proper listen, but this one I've played it through a couple times for this, in preparation for this, and really good stuff. Coming in at number 26 is one of my favorite artists, and it should be higher on here, but if I'm honest, there's 25 albums I like better. So this is David Bowie, Reality. And this kind of split the critics, and the only reason I don't have it higher is I think there's a couple weak tracks on it, or, you know, just so-so tracks. But my favorite tracks on here, like New Killer Star and Bring Me the Disco King, and these are wonderful songs. Bring Me the Disco King has that beautiful piano by Mike Garson, and yeah, I thought, just preparing this list, I just figured this would be top 15 or top 20 for me, but I found a number of albums I think I honestly like better. So David Bowie, Reality, gosh, such a huge Bowie fan, I can't believe I'm putting him this low, but there you have it, David Bowie, Reality. Coming in number 25, we're back to another Americana album, and this is Emmylou Harris, Stumble Into Grace. And this was really kind of, you know, she'd been around 30 years when she made this album, but she had never really written anything. And so the focus on this album is to really feature her songwriting, and I think she does a great job. There's a lot of gospel and Christian influence on here, but I don't mind it one bit. In fact, actually, I kind of like gospel music. Even if I don't subscribe to it, I just love it as a genre. And I'm not saying it's black gospel, it's more country gospel. But great stuff, and it was produced by Malcolm Byrne. And I think what's so curious to me is he produced her previous album, which was called Red Dirt Girl, and people loved that album. And that album does not sound right to me. There's something wrong with the production. It's very distorted, and I do not like the sound of that album. And she returned to work with him again, and he made this great album called Stumble into Grace. Wonderful songs. It's actually a really strong listen all the way through. So got, let's see, Metacritic had it at 87. So it got really good reviews, and the British press loved it. Most of those British magazines gave it 5 stars, and I do think it's a really great album. Number 24, coming in from Cardiff, Wales, the band Super Furry Animals and their album Phantom Power. Probably my second favorite album by them, but it's growing all the time. I've always said Rings Around the World was my favorite, but every time I listen to this album, it gets a little bit better and it continues to grow on me. Fun stuff. I think you know all the tracks on here. Maybe not, but I'm trying to think of this. I just played this album, part of it today, and I'm spacing out some of the songs, but I'm sorry about that. But yeah, isn't that funny? The songs are, it's like I don't remember the songs, but as soon as I play the album again, I'm like, oh, and I'm humming along. So it is a very catchy pop album. I like Super Furry Animals. I wouldn't say they're one of my 20 favorite bands in the 21st century, but yeah, they have really good melody and pop sensibility, and then they just weird it out enough, right, to make it a little different and a little modern. So good stuff from Super Furry Animals. Number 23, probably the wildest album on here. I bought this when it came out in 2003. And that is the Mars Volta Deloused in the Comatorium, their debut album produced by Rick Rubin. Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers is on bass. This is a band from El Paso, and I'm sure you know them. They kind of emerged out of the breakup of At the Drive-In. And this is a dense album, and it has, even though I liked it the very first time I listened to it, it has taken years for me to properly appreciate this album. And I think you guys understand, probably most of you have had the same reaction. This is a dense album with tons of sonic things thrown your way. And every time I listen to it, it grows on me a little bit more. And I've got it now here at number 23, Deloused in the Comatorium. Let me take just a quick sip of coffee. Number 22, I guess kind of a comfort artist, but I'm a big Van Morrison fan. And this is his Blue Note debut called What's Wrong with This Picture? And if you love horns, oh, this is a great horn album. Saxes and Van plays some of the sax, and then he's got usually three horn players on most of the tracks. Another sax player, sometimes he plays tenor, sometimes alto, sometimes baritone. And then you have some flute and some clarinet and some awesome keyboards. And, you know, this is just an album that holds up pretty well all the way through. Van doesn't even usually make Rate Your Music's list, but he did crack the top 1,000 on here. He's just one of those artists doesn't get his due sometimes. I think people take him for granted. But his voice is in fine form, and the production is just stellar. And if you like just good keys and horns and good arrangements, because that's really the thing about this album. The arrangements are fantastic, and always a great lyricist, so no apologies here. Van Morrison, What's Wrong with This Picture? Coming in at number 21, an artist I don't know if my followers are familiar with or not, and this is the artist Robert Wyatt and his album Cuckoo Land. Now, this is an acquired taste. So Robert Wyatt has a very unusual voice. It's not a falsetto, but it sounds like a falsetto. And his story is pretty interesting. He was in a band called Soft Machine, which is one of the Canterbury bands that did all that psychedelic rock, bands like Gong and Hatfield and North and all these people that came out of the Canterbury scene that influenced psychedelic music so much. And then he fell out of a window and he was paralyzed for life. This is in the 70s. And since he was a drummer, he couldn't drum anymore. So he just changed keyboards and started a solo career. And he's been doing solo records for 50 years. He's not super prolific, but he incorporates everything, Latin and jazz and all sorts of things into his music. And man, this is a really good album. It's got a variety of styles, and it does have some jazz influence on a few of the tracks. And I just love Robert Wyatt. If you don't know him, I'm going to be doing a Spotify playlist when I finish part 2. And if you go there, you can sample Robert Wyatt on there. And then if you like the album, you can click on it and listen to the whole thing. So Robert Wyatt, Cuckoo Land. Number 20, now we're in the top 20. Bonnie Prince Billy, whose real name is Will Oldham. And don't know if you're familiar with him, but he made an album called Master and Everyone. And I love it. He's from Louisville, Kentucky. He's on a small label called Drag City, which has had a lot of important artists, even if they weren't huge sellers, and very influential record label. And this is just spare, haunting, mostly acoustic. Not too many musicians on here. He plays mostly acoustic guitar. I think there's some keyboards, some cello, some tambourine. That's about it. And love it. There's no one like him. He's got a very frail voice that kind of warbles, and then he's just got these very distinctive lyrics, somewhat dark. And some people know him because, of all people, Johnny Cash ended up recording one of his songs, and so he's been covered by some other artists, and so got a little bit prominent. But this was reviewed pretty well, except Pitchfork wasn't too crazy about this particular album. But I like Bonnie Prince Billy. He's wonderful. Check him out. All right, coming in at number 19, a style that I normally am not crazy about, kind of glitch pop or glitch electronics. But the big exception to this is Four Tet, Rounds. And I bought this album, or my wife bought this album. One of us bought it when it came out, so I've also been listening to this album for 19 years. And his real name is Kieran Hebden from England. Kieran Hebden, yeah, I think I got that right. And he's on Domino, which is such a great record label. And I think the thing I want to say about Four Tet on here, it's all instrumental music, is putting in at number 19. I could play this album tomorrow, and it would be 29 or 9. I mean, it depends on my mood, and when it hits the spot, it hits the spot. And one night I was listening to this album, and I just thought, oh man, this is so great. Just beautiful, beautiful electronics, and I guess he just took months to do it on his laptop, but sounds good to me. And it did very well commercially. This, let's see, Metacritic gives this an 89. So this was a very well-reviewed album, and I like it quite a bit. Another album that was rated 89 on Metacritic that a lot of people don't talk about comes in at number 18, John Cale, Homo Sapiens. And I got to tell you guys, I am just baffled that people don't seem to care about John Cale. I think he's a fantastic artist. I was lucky enough to see him one time in concert. He was just by himself, just keyboards and guitar, no band. And he came out in a Hawaiian shirt and just performed for us in a little club. But he is a founding member of the Velvet Underground, played keyboards, bass, and viola with them, made 2 albums, and then quit the band when he got into disagreements with Lou Reed. And this is a latter-day great work of art. Homo Sapiens has just got several great songs. It's a little bit dense, so a little bit hard to appreciate on first listen, but John Cale, I think his solo career is fantastic, and he's criminally underrated. So if you do go to that playlist, check out these tracks by John Cale, Homo Sapiens. Really well produced and melodic. His voice is in great form. I just love it. Coming in at number 17 is another band kind of like David Bowie that I really like but didn't rank quite as high as normal. This is Drive-By Truckers, Decoration Day. And I love this album, but it's not in my top 2 by them, so it's ranked a little bit lower. It's I believe it's a double album. So that might pull it down just a little bit, in that it's just a tad longish, but this is a band from Atlanta, and their storytelling skills are superior. Every song is like a little short story, and full of guitars, very influenced by Lynyrd Skynyrd, so they're trying to do sort of a highbrow Southern rock. It's kind of how I look at it. Patterson Hood, that writes about half the songs, is a voracious reader, and so he's got these very high intellect lyrics, but with this very simple Southern rock and roll, and that's kind of their aesthetic. I love it. And so Decoration Day, not always crazy about their album covers. The guy, though, that did this album cover, I think he died this year, but they're very distinctive album covers. And anyway, if you haven't heard Patterson Hood and Mike Cooley, the 2 singers and songwriters of this band, love Drive-By Truckers. And coming in at number 16, completing this list, is a band from Tucson, Arizona, and that's Calexico and their album Feast of Wire. A lot of people think this is their best album. I don't know that I can say that declaratively because I haven't listened to all their catalog, but it's the best that I've heard. Feast of Wire by Calexico. And this album is actually in the book 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. Got really good reviews, and I love this album. It's full of Mexican and Latin influence sounds, a lot of trumpet and quattro and different kinds of instrumentation, but they're clearly in the rock and roll field. And Calexico, love them. Yeah, number 16. So look how high they are on this list, ahead of some people I normally, would show more allegiance to. But I'm trying to be objective here. And, so like I mentioned, the David Bowie album is probably not one of my 5 favorite David Bowies, but this Calexico is my favorite Calexico album. So therefore, it's higher on the list, right? So that's it. We're going to save the rest of this list for part 2. Let me know what you think. And I really enjoy doing these. They're a lot of work, though, I got to tell you. Hours and hours of listening. But here we go. So we'll drop part 2 as soon as we can. And thanks for joining me on the channel. And as we say in Bonita, Mexico, buen dia.